start our competition today, our first team up is Mauchline. The team is chaired by Fiona Gemmell. She is 25 years old and this is her first year competing at national speechmaking and she's very excited about it. She's looking forward to taking a step back into a more supporting role after a very busy year as secretary. So if you could please welcome to the stage, Mauchline.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Rolling hills, greenlands, rivers, and even nature at its best. A picturesque scene I'm sure we all seen here driving up to Inverness. However, should farmers be doing more to support these ecosystems in their glory, or is it up to the land and wildlife itself to adapt with farmers already busy enough? Thankfully, with me this morning, I have two very capable speakers to debate the topic. Regenerative farming is the future of agriculture in Scotland. On my right, I'm proposing the motion is Mr. Kerslone. Kerr works at home on the family dairy farm and wants to work in tandem with our ecosystems, whether that's from the bugs to the bees or the flowers to the trees. He's a real green freak. On my left and opposing is Kerr Superior Club Chairman, Mr. Ryan Kennedy. Ryan is a process operator at GSK whilst also working at home on the family dairy rearing farm, who, as you can tell, is quite busy enough without adding to his workload to plant trees or check in with the local wildlife. To my far left is our arbiter, Mr. Kyle Lamont, who I will introduce more fully later on. Well, Kerr, it's time to grab those wellies and take to the field. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle. Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Get that hedge ripped out. Cut down those trees. I'm wanting an extra half acre for silage. These are all common phrases used by farmers in years gone by. However, these practices were detrimental towards nature, and many farmers have now done a complete U-turn. Today, I will highlight that regenerative farming is the future of agriculture in Scotland, through the points of the benefits of farming in tandem with nature, painting a positive image for Scottish farmers, and how this can provide an additional income stream for many struggling farmers. Firstly, there are many benefits to farming alongside nature. Farming alongside nature attracts natural pests such as bugs and birds to predate crop pests like slugs and arable crops. It also helps to maintain soil and worm health. All of this reduces the need for artificial chemical pesticides and in turn reduces the farmer's carbon footprint. Moving on, farmers working with nature paints a positive picture for already under scrutiny Scottish farmers. As I'm sure you'll all know, farmers have become a scapegoat for climate change. But farmers working in tandem with nature would shine a positive light for British agriculture. In turn, this would boost sales and reduce our reliance on substandard foreign imports. Lastly, regenerative farming can pose as an additional income stream for many farmers. Farmers are often offered lump sums of money to set aside a proportion of their land for carbon offsets, either by large corporations or the government. This additional income stream can be seen as a lifeline to many struggling farmers, And on that note, if anyone here is looking to offer eye-watering lump sums of cash for a small area of land, I'm sure I could spare an extra half acre. Ladies and gentlemen, farming is changing for the better. The journey has only just begun. There is no doubt that regenerative farming is the future of agriculture in Scotland. So come and join me in planting a tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerr. You've demonstrated that natural pests can be used instead of chemicals, creating a more positive light on the farming community, and there is also financial benefits to this type of farming. It's time for you to take a breather while we give Ryan a chance to see if the grass is greener on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kerr, you can dance about in the daisies all you want and watch the butterflies flying by, but some of us have real farming to do. In the 1950s, the average farmer only fed 5 people. However, currently the average farmer now feeds 155 people. This shows how important it is for Scottish agriculture to try and produce as much food as possible for the growing population. This would also help us reduce our reliance on foreign imports and be a stronger sector as a whole. Regenerative farming would only harm this. Moving on to my next point. With the increased pressure on farmers, profit margins are now tighter than ever, and regenerative farming would only add to this. Who is going to have to pay to plant all these new hedges and plant the flowers? Farmers. This is just not viable. Only 35% of farmers, currently 35% of farmers cannot afford to even pay themselves minimum wage. So having to do this would only add to this pressure, and then again add to the current mental health crisis we already have in agriculture. Now for my final point, ladies and gentlemen. Farmers simply do not have time. Agriculture is currently experiencing a massive labour shortage. So farmers are already busy enough, and it should be left to other people to make these changes if they wish, like Nature Reserve Scotland. However, as we have seen recently with the recent reintroduction of beavers in Scotland, this has been a disaster for Scottish farmers, seeing flooded land. So we must be careful what we wish for. So in conclusion, we need to feed a growing population. This would come at too much of a cost, and farmers are already busy enough. Therefore, I strongly believe that regenerative agriculture is not the future of agriculture in Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. You've shown that with a growing population, food is more important with our production. And farmers, where are they finding the time to make these changes with an already never-ending to-do list? Now, let's see what your Vice Chairman has to say in response. Back to you, Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ryan, you mentioned in your speech that farmers are already suffering from tight profit margins, and they are going to end up having to dig into their own pocket in order to improve nature around their farms. However, our government are already subsidising farmers to work in a regenerative manner, as we see basic payment schemes and other subsidies swaying towards farmers working in a regenerative manner, as farmers must meet certain standards around nature and wildlife in order to receive subsidies that they once received for not doing such work. So you may have real farming to get on with and no time to work in tandem with nature. However, this real farming was detrimental to nature in years gone by, and we have already lost over half of our wildlife populations since the start of the Industrial Revolution. So it's time that farmers must change and learn to work in tandem with nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerr. Well, ladies and gentlemen, after hearing from both sides of the fence, there are still some unanswered questions. To allow our arbiter to make his final royal decision. So, let's move on to the general debate to clear these up. For this part, we shall remain seated, and Ryan, I'll go to you first to kick things off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kerr, do you not think the government should be doing more to support Scottish farmers, and it should be left to them to help increase the revive the decreasing UK wildlife population?
Kerr, should the government be doing more to support our farmers?
There is only so much our government can do to support farmers. They are already supporting farmers by means of offering subsidies towards farmers working in tandem with nature. And with over 70% of UK landmass being maintained by farmers, ultimately it comes down to the farmer themselves to maintain the landscapes and work with nature.
Ryan, it's up to yourself to be doing the work. However, Kerr, can you bring a new point to the argument?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ryan, you mentioned that farmers have no time for working with wildlife and planting trees and flowers. However, throughout the last 10-20 years, we have seen a massive increase in the use of technology in farming. Robotic equipment has helped farmers increase yields and reduce their workload. So this has freed up so much time. Surely farmers can use this time to go out and work in a regenerative manner in their fields.
Ryan, can you not be utilising technology to free up your time?
As I have previously said, profit margins in agriculture today are already so tight, and all of this technology...
But this technology is...
Ryan, can you finish your point?
This technology comes at a massive cost for the farmers. It's not simply possible for them to change their full setup just so they can start planting hedges. It's not viable.
But our government subsidies have made it possible for farmers to obtain this technology and to work regeneratively. So it is now easier than ever for farmers to do this. We have seen recently through the Future Farm Investment Scheme how the government have enabled farmers to adapt technology on their farm. This has made the adaptation of technology so much easier. Farmers have now more time than ever. I mean, look at all of us, all the way to Inverness this weekend.
The Future Farm Investment Scheme was a great idea. However, it simply is still not enough. Only 22% of applicants for that scheme were successful. So the government must do more to support farmers.
But the
Thank
government
you,
have...
Kerr. Sorry, I'm going to have to close the gate on this debate. Thank you, speakers. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm glad I'm not in Kyle's shoes after that debate. And with that, it's time to hand over to our arbiter, Mr. Kyle Lamont. Kyle is a bricklayer to trade who has a secret hobby. Kyle is a keen florist and loves to keep his garden pristine, to allow his plants to flourish and support bugs. He even likes to compete in the local floral arranging competitions, picking up a few prizes along the way. That's after myself, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a topic. Who knew that the topic of regenerative farming is the future of farming could cause such a debate? But that's certainly what we've had this morning, which our proposer, Kerr, and our opposer, Ryan, have proven. Our proposer introduced the topic when he pointed out that farmers want as much farming land as possible. Knowing Kerr, he always thinks that bigger is better, until it comes to taking shots last time. Kerr then emphasised this when he went on to talk about how small farmland wildlife helps to reduce the amount of pesticides required, as well as farmers having the ability to receive large lump sums due to their regenerative farming. This then led us on to our opposer. Ryan brought his thoughts to the table when he strongly stated that Kerr can dance in the daisies, but the real farmers are busy. This was then reinforced when Ryan mentioned that farmers now feed over 150 more people than compared with the 1950s, as well as the fact that farmers are always struggling for time. Personally, I think that if Ryan spent a little less time on TikTok and a little bit more time in a tractor, he'd go on a lot better. With the speeches coming to a close, our chair then invited our speakers to go head to head in an open debate, which brought forward the new points that the government should be doing more for the landscapes, as well as that now that technology is here, it has reduced the amount of time required for these jobs on the farm, although this can come at a lot of expense. It was evident to me, however, that our opposer had the most convincing argument, with the killer point that farming profits are already low, and spending more money on the landscape could result in struggling finances and an increased mental health risk. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, following our discussion and debate, I'm sure you'll agree that both our proposer and opposer put up a strong defence on this morning's debate, which certainly hasn't made my job any easier. However, after hearing both sides, the winner of this morning's debate, in my opinion, is our opposer, and I am totally convinced that regenerative farming is not the future of farming. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it was Ryan who won the debate of regenerative farming is the future of agriculture in Scotland. Let's hope this decision doesn't cause any rifts between these office bearers. But are you in agreement? Is regenerative farming the future of agriculture in Scotland? Or is it up to the government and other organisations to support our wildlife? Thank you.